Hello and welcome to Season 1, Episode 3 of StatisFlix, Data for Movies. I'm Elizabeth, an actor and a data scientist, and today we're returning back to this season's topic, measuring female characters on the FemmeMeter. But we're switching it up. Today we're doing something called a compare and a contrast, where we take two characters from the same movie and run them both through the FemmeMeter to see how they match up. We'll do this a couple times throughout the season, but for now, let's get things started. Our movie today is Crazy Rich Asians, the blockbuster rom-com hit of 2018. Now, there are many reasons why this movie is great, from its barrier-breaking casting to its gorgeous color palette. But for all its glories, the FemmeMeter did not love Crazy Rich Asians, to the extent that I didn't feel like I had enough content to produce a video about its main character, Rachel Chu. Instead, we're going to do a compare and contrast between Rachel Chu and Astrid Young, who both scored a 76. Let's break these scores down. For a main character like Rachel, a 76 is okay at best. Most of the points that she scored came from passing the Bechdel test, getting billed first, and simply being present in a lot of scenes. 51 out of the 76 points that she scored came from these three categories alone. For Astrid, who's a supporting character, a 76 is probably the highest score that she could get. Most of the points that she lost were things that she couldn't really control, like her billing and her screen time. Were Astrid the main character of the story, she likely would have scored in the low to mid-90s. Data science fact. Character class, like leading or supporting, affects a character's final score, meaning that character class is a confounding variable in this model. When I was designing the FemmeMeter, I did my best to limit obvious confounding variables by measuring things that were independent of genre, time period, and plot. I decided at the end of the day that billing and screen time, which are both affected by character class, were too important to leave out of the final model. For example, the FemmeMeter should account for the fact that Rachel was on screen much more than Astrid was, even if they get the same final score. Rachel and Astrid, despite their unequal character classes, end up scoring the same because Rachel is a tourist in her own story. She's a classic example of the agency void, which we touched on in my last video, but essentially means that she makes no difference to the plot. Up until the final scenes where she confronts Eleanor, Rachel doesn't have a single significant plot movement. She is constantly being taken to places, being shown things, and letting the plot move her forward rather than the other way around. She literally runs away from her problems. Astrid, on the other hand, is integral to her story. She investigates, confronts, and eventually leaves her husband, all with 15% of the screen time that Rachel had. There's an argument to be made that Rachel, who's a professor of economics, occupies a traditionally masculine space and deserves more from the FemmeMeter. I understand this argument, but it's actually what makes her low score so disappointing for me. All the tools were there, but they're just props to look at, rather than being written into the story meaningfully. Instead of jabs here and there showing off Rachel's economic chops, we get lines like this one.
I read your great article about microloans in the Asian Economics Journal.
I received so much criticism about that article.
Well, you know what? I think your critics miss the point. Because your microloans help women, and women lift up economies.
Yikes! Not only is this a massive oversimplification of microloans, it cheapens Rachel's PhD. Let me be clear, women do uplift economies, but a collegiate professor would never speak this way to an academic peer. Something that was intended to be a girl power moment feels really off color and cringy. So, we end up with Rachel and Astrid, both from Crazy Rich Asians, at a 76 on the FemmeMeter. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments how you thought our first compare and contrast went. One more note. I understand that Crazy Rich Asians was an important point in representation for the Asian community in popular American cinema. I am not of Asian heritage. So, if you think I missed something, I would love to hear from you in the comments. See you next time.